Good day. Thank you so much for joining me for my first episode of Mommy Sips and Tips. Mommy Sips and Tips. It's a podcast series, and what I intend to do is to combine two of my favorite things, a little sip here and there, and lots of tips for everyone out there. So I'm really excited about the first episode, and also excited because I have two of my favorite people joining me today. Two of my favorite people in the world. I have Elise. Hi, Elise.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And I also have Kara.
Hi, mother.
No, let's not do mom. You're going to call me Miss Karen. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, it is my daughter. So instead of me telling you how amazing these two people are, I'm going to have them tell you about themselves, starting with you, Elise. Tell me who you are. Tell the world who you are, what you do, and what makes you so awesome.
Thank you. I'm Elise Caldwell. I am from Annapolis, Maryland originally. I moved to Miami about 10 years ago now. I work at a sports performance and personal training facility called DBC Fitness in the Design District. I'm the head athletic trainer there, and I do everything from rehab to tissue work and stretching to high-level sports performance and kind of everything in between. And I'm so happy to be on your first episode.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me, Elise.
Thank you.
And you, Kara?
Unfortunately, I'm just the daughter of
No.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but my name's Kara Vassell. As you can imagine, I share a last name with Karen Vassell, so that is my mom. I was a former student athlete, and then I wanted to get myself into psychology, so now I'm a sports therapist. I am a mastered sports therapist.
Nice. Get that on there.
Thank you very much.
Get the credentials in.
Thank you. But I work at the University of Miami in sports psychology, so I help support the mental health of student athletes, and we also do a lot of performance psychology too. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Your TED Talk. I love it. Soon, not yet though. But all right. So, today's topic, based on what our guests mention, right? Like their avenues of expertise. Today's topic is on physical and mental health. And this is something I feel a lot of us, a lot of women, a lot of people struggle with, right? We know we want to be physically healthy. We hear so much about mental health, but I'm hoping that our two guests today can share some tips with you all, with me as well, on how we can better improve our physical and our mental health. So I want to start by posing a question. I need you both to define what physical health is and what mental health is. And we'll start with you, Kara. What is your definition of mental health?
Mental health can be a lot of different things. And like you look at somebody like Elise, right? And she's really into physical health. But I want to pose a question to the audience, right? If you can raise your hand, let's say you're in a studio audience, right? Would you be more apt to going to the doctor if you have a physical ailment, right? But what about a mental ailment, and what does that look like? It can be an array of a lot of different things, but I think the one thing that I would use as a determinant factor of defining mental health, it's all about not necessarily emotions, but when you have an issue and you're finding that you're going to your support system and that just doesn't seem like enough, maybe you need to talk to somebody, right? Maybe you need to go and get that support from somebody else. So mental health can be a lot of things. It can be familial issues. It can be dealing with injury, right? Physical health goes hand in hand with mental health too. It can be the way that you take in your nutrition. It can be a lot of different things. So mental health is in everything that we experience as human beings. I don't know if that was a good enough answer.
Oh, that was a great answer. That was a perfect answer.
Okay.
And we're going to dive deeper into that in a little while.
Okay.
But Elise, what is your definition of physical health?
Physical health is a collective of a bunch of different things. I think most people would tend to think about the fact that when you train and you work out, it improves your cardiovascular health. So the way that your heart works, the way that it's able to deliver blood and nutrients to the rest of your body, everything from strength. And, what we typically think of in the gym, lifting weights and how that translates to activities and of your daily life, getting up and out of bed and being able to get in and out of your car. And especially as you age, how important those things are. And then there's a lot of other benefits that I think we don't discuss as much, such as cognitive health, the benefits that for long-term cognitive function and health and preventing things like dementia and Alzheimer's. There's just so many other components of physical health that aren't discussed as much. And that ties also directly back into mental health too. So there's so many benefits of working out and exercising, and we're kind of just seeing like the tip of the iceberg as far as the benefits. So exercise it's free medicine, and it treats a vast array of things. It's so important.
Right. Exercise is medicine,
Yeah.
right? So, you guys spoke a little bit about how physical and mental health are related, but do you want to dive deeper into that and tell us about, how they intertwine? How does one play off the other, or how does one support the other?
I know in my niche of a field, specifically sports psych, we see a lot of student athletes who are day in, day out, like pushing themselves to the limit in the weight room, in the training room, doing their rehab or going out to compete, right? But if you compare that to people who aren't student athletes, people are going to work and pushing themselves past their limits, right? They're pushing to get that money. They're trying to get that raise, but everybody is an elite performer. Doesn't matter if you're in like a physical realm or like in a physical realm outside of like sports, right? So what you find is that no matter what you go through in like the physical sense, there's always going to be that little extra like mental piece of, okay, like I'm doing this physical thing, but also like, how does it feel within my body, right? Am I doing this? Am I good enough? Do I have enough confidence to do the thing to push me past that extra space where I can like elevate? Okay. Am I performing well enough? Okay. What do I need to do? Do I need to communicate? There's so many things in mental health, which is why I feel like it's hard to kind of like explain the ties, because I don't want to go past my competency, and at least that's where you come in.
Same.
Right?
I'm not trying to talk about mental health on a level I don't know.
Yeah, but there's a mental health piece in everything that you do. It's always about like checking in with your emotions. It's about asking yourself like cognitive, like you said, the cognitive questions of, all right, do I need to like get myself more amped up, or do I need to be more excited than anxious? How do I do that? How do I transform my anxiety into excitement? There's so many cognitive processes that take place within our minds that we're so unaware of because of cultural context. I know we're going to get to that.
Yeah, we will get to it.
But there's so many things I could talk about. I'm going to be quiet now.
No, that was great. That was great. I think from my perspective, I like to think of the brain as a muscle. Because what we know from research is when you're training on a regular basis, even if you just work out 3 times a week for 30 minutes or go for a walk a couple times a week, what we have learned is that there's areas of the brain that actually get stronger and grow and improve. Yeah. So an area like the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for attention and mood and decision making, we know that through research, the prefrontal cortex gets bigger and it gets stronger, and that ties right in with mood. So a lot of times for people struggling with depression or other mental health issues, there can be days where you're struggling and you don't feel like working out, but the benefits that you get from exercise, it's going to help your mood. It's going to help anxiety levels. There's just a whole trigger of responses that we get from working out that's super important. So I think when we think about training, we can't just think about training our bodies. We're also training our brain for the short term mood and focus and attention, but also for the long term, preventing a lot of neurocognitive diseases and stuff.
So you've talked about, Elise, you've talked about how the exercise can help, with your brain health. Tell us about how exercise can help with physical health.
Sure. What we have noticed within the last probably 20 to 30 years is just such a crazy decline of general health and lifetime expectancy. So in the US, we have one of the lower health lifetime expectancies. And a big piece of that is, a lack of real physical health. And that's kind of all encompassing. It's, of course, working out and making sure you're taking care of yourself from a physical aspect, but also focusing on your lifestyle as well. So physical health has to also include nutrition, hydration, sleep, all these daily things that tie directly into your overall physical health as well. So yes, working out and training is super important. But let's not also forget that another key component is how you treat yourself throughout your daily life and how you're fueling your body and how you're resting and restoring. So I think that's another key component of mental health and physical health, and also those lifestyle decisions. Like, are you actually restoring and resting and giving yourself the fuel that you need to be able to do all these things? Because we're expecting a lot of ourselves these days.
We really
So,
do. We do. I think we put ourselves under so much pressure to be as close to perfect as possible, physically, right? And we'll chat about that a little bit later on. But Kara, I want to know from you, what are some of the factors that impact one's mental health?
Elise touched on like the scientific part of this, right? So we're talking about brain health. And if we were to translate this more into like a scientific discussion, when you think about the brain, it's all neurons, it's all electricity, and it's all chemicals, right? So you have mood kind of like receptors that pick up on certain chemicals like dopamine. We have norepinephrine. We have so many different things that affect our mood. But when you think about, what was the question again?
What are the factors that impact mental health?
Thank you. So I was getting too scientific.
You
I'm a
were.
nerd.
You were going too deep. I'm like, no.
Serotonin, norepinephrine.
Don't refer to the diploma right now. Just tell me, higher level.
But thinking about all of these chemicals that kind of contribute to your daily things that you go through, right? Remind me of the question again. I really forgot the question. Tell me.
What are some of the factors that impact mental health?
So what I was trying to get at,
what
I was trying to get at was sometimes it's all scientific. Sometimes there are things that are passed down in our DNA that we simply can't control. So we have to go out to like doctors, psychiatrists, whatever it may be, for medication to kind of affect that. But sometimes it's more like cognitive or emotional, right? So it can be a lot of different factors. It can be your social environment, right? It could be like family specifically too. For somebody who's experiencing kind of like an individual-based job, like lack of social interaction can definitely lead to a lot of different things where us as humans in our evolutionary kind of process, we need, and when we don't get those things, that can kind of cause us to break down. So everything can affect your mental health. I'm sorry, like this is going to be a lot.
You know what? It's true. It's true. Because I remember during COVID, I wasn't able to go out. I wasn't able to do certain things. So I found myself sipping a lot more than I was tipping. So that created a problem in itself, right? So, there are a lot of factors that can affect your mental health. And I think one of the big factors is like your culture, right? When we look at culture and we look at some of the stigmas associated with mental and physical health, because I am Jamaican. And I have gained a few pounds over the years. I've gotten a little fluffy over the years, which I don't mind it. I like it. But you go in to see one of your Jamaican relatives and you walk into the house and it's like, oh my God, you get fat. Oh, you're so fat. You put on too much weight. So they make it seem as if it's a huge problem in my culture. But when I see my African friends, it's like, oh my God, Karen, you look so good. So it's one is welcoming and one makes you feel like it's okay and they're a little bit more kind. But when I go to my own people, it's a problem. And it's the same with mental health, right? And if you have an issue and you have to speak to someone, it's like, oh, that person is mad. That's a madman. So I want you to talk about some of the stigmas that you have seen with mental and physical health. And we'll start with you, Elise. Do you have any stories to share?
I think that's just such an incredible question. And I know that there are so many examples of how your culture and how you're raised can affect the way that you see yourself and the way that people see others. And I think the biggest thing is just remembering that you aren't your body, you aren't your physical appearance. At the end of the day, you are your soul and who you are as a person. And I think cultures put a certain amount of pressure on you from a physical perspective and how you present yourself. And that varies from culture to culture. So probably your experience growing up compared to mine is very different. I know we tend to, and this ties back into what you said about this idea of perfection. a lot of times people kind of fall short, whether it's from a training aspect or an appearance aspect, because there is such pressure to appear perfect. Like everything's great, everything's fine. I'm presenting myself in a great way. I look a certain way. But that's not everything. And I think the cultural difference that you mentioned ties right into the mood and the emotion and psychological aspect of things too. So when you get certain comments or you're treated a certain way based upon how you look, it just starts a whole negative cycle of how you see yourself and how you think other people see you as well. And I know one of the major, one thing that we're really seeing with people who might be a little bit heavier or might be a little bit overweight, it's not just the biases that they're feeling from, you know, those around them or social pressures about how they look. We're also seeing some bias against them in even the healthcare world. So it's unfortunate that the way that you look and maybe the way that you appear or even the color of your skin or your background sometimes has an effect on how you're treated in the healthcare community.
Give us an example of that.
Okay, I'll give a really good example. My mom, hey mom, Anne, she was a dietitian for about 40 years.
Shout out to Anne.
She's the best. And she told me a story one time about a client who was obese. And a lot of times my mom worked hand in hand with a mental health professional because food is always deeper than just food. There's usually a huge emotional connection to that as well. So my mom was counseling somebody who was obese and was having some GI issues, and the doctors kept being like, oh, you're fine. Just lose some weight, try to eat some more fiber, eat a little healthier, drink your juices, your green juices, and take your little prebiotics and everything like that. And she was like, no, I think there's really something wrong. And unfortunately, because of how she appeared, she just kept being told, okay, just lose weight and get healthier. Well, she actually ended up having, you know, cancer in the stomach, and she was overlooked for years because of how she looked. And it was just, there was such a stigma against her in that situation. And I think we're seeing that across the board. How people look really does, unfortunately, determine how some people are treated. And it shouldn't be that way, of course.
Right.
So I think we have to do a better job of seeing the person for who they are and not the way they look.
Right. And I think that, you know, as women, as people, as individuals, we have to be able to advocate for ourselves, especially in that healthcare setting. You know your bodies better than anyone else, and you should be able to tell if there's something wrong. So, you know, you need to be able to speak up and let folks know what's happening. All right. And just be firm about it. Right. So, Kara, cultures, stigma.
I think kind of going off of Elise's point, the same kind of idea of healthcare professionals being low-key prejudiced against clientele or people that come in for services is definitely prevalent in the mental health world. That's why you see clients coming in and wanting people of the same cultures to work with them because they understand. For instance, studies show that Black women actually present with anxiety and depression differently than other clients that come in the office of different cultural contexts or backgrounds. And it shows up as irritability, but also with the underlying factor of the superwoman complex, right? Where you feel like you can take on everything and you don't have to like show your emotional side because that's a sign of weakness, right? But being weak means not elevating in the corporate world. So there are a lot of cultural things that can contribute to the overall treatment of the client, but also like the impact of the client's life.
Okay. Very well said. And I will second everything you just said.
And I want to speak to something that you just said, actually.
Okay.
So I understand what you're saying about like people having to be firm, right? But I think it's also important for us to understand cultural context too, because when you haven't had the training or the knowledge to be firm about something you don't know about, then how are you going to be firm? You know what I mean? And I think what you said is perfect, right? You do have to learn how to do that. And where you can learn how to be firm, that's called boundaries. That's what we do in therapy too. But learning your boundaries, you can learn that in therapy. you can learn that with a mental health professional. And once you know your boundaries, you don't have to be reactive. You can be proactive about the situation, right? So I definitely agree with what you're saying.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for following up on that. And since you are speaking about boundaries and so forth, is that one of the ways in which you manage your mental health?
Well, it's
setting
funny
boundaries?
because my mother has known me for 20 something years, 26, almost 27 years. And how I managed my mental health for the majority of my life was going on the soccer field until I couldn't. And so when I couldn't do that anymore, I went to therapy. And I also relied on my close circle to help support me. But, sometimes you have to be self-sufficient because you're not going to always have friends to go to, right? So yes, I do set my boundaries very clearly now that I have the knowledge to do that. But I also separate myself from the things that I do. And I go into more mindful activities where I don't have to be the best. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to do anything. I like to color because if I color out the lines, who's going to check me? Nobody. Right? So just doing little things like that you can separate your value from your performance, right? That's what really contributes to my mental health, at least.
All right. Great answer. And Elise, what do you do to manage your mental health?
That's a good question. I really have kind of narrowed down my daily routine and, like Kara mentioned as well, boundaries, probably honestly, really within the last couple of years. I just turned 34 and I feel like my early 30s have really been how to spend more time for myself and put more energy into my cup. Because when you work with other individuals and you work with people on a daily basis, you give so much of your energy away. It's important to find ways to give back to yourself and pour into your own cup. So I do things like even just reading a book on my balcony, disconnecting from social media, turning off my phone, not texting clients back after 8 p.m. Little things like that to make sure I'm controlling my own space. And then, of course, exercising, making sure I'm getting sunlight, meal prepping, and making sure I'm fueling myself. Those are the really big ones. And then obviously continuing to pour into relationships with family and loved ones and friends, and just making sure you have a really good community around you because, we all go through tough times.
Yeah.
It's important to have people to lean on so that, you have that extra layer of support. But I think the big ones are definitely nutrition, hydration, working out and getting some sunlight, and then just building on those relationships that you have in your life.
Yeah.
So I manage my mental health by, doing the gym. I like a 5 o'clock gym or after work gym. And then I also enjoy pouring a martini into my cup after work and, just hanging out with my friends. So is that a good way to manage my mental health, Kara?
Short term, yes. Long
Okay.
term, no.
All right. So yes, it's a yes. We can continue drinking martini, Cheryl.
I also think it's hard in Miami because it is such a social place. Everybody's always going out and hanging out with their friends.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that a lot of times in Miami, alcohol and socialization go hand in hand. We know the negative effects of alcohol.
Yeah, we do know it. And and we just have to be careful, and we have to make sure that's not your only go-to for recharging or for filling your cup. All right? The sippy cup should be empty sometimes, people.
Yes.
All right. So, Elise, so I was talking to Elise this morning before we started, and I asked Elise, what did you have for breakfast? She's like, I had an arepa with cheese. I'm like, what? Is that breakfast food? And you're in such good physical shape. Is that what you normally do? So I want to know, how do you manage your physical health? Like, what's your routine?
Sure. I was really fortunate, and I recognize how fortunate I was to grow up in a household where my mom was a dietitian. We had a dinner every night together as a family. And just from my family relationship growing up, I just built a really good relationship with food overall. We always had a vegetable with every meal. There was always a good protein, a healthy carb. And I really learned from my parents the importance of a well-balanced meal and how to cook. My parents had me in the kitchen from a really young age, helping cook. And it's unfortunate because in this world, Uber Eats is so easy. It's quick to just be like, oh, I'm just going to have Chinese food tonight. And it shows up at your door 20 minutes later. And you're like, ha, let's go. But I think one of the things that I've been able to, or one of the reasons why I've been able to stay in decent shape is because I really do focus on the way I eat. And one of the things I've noticed is people tend to shy away from super healthy foods because they don't think they can taste good. There's ways to cook healthy food that tastes good. And the best thing about food, if you eat the right types of food that are prepared the right way, it energizes you. So for me, I see food as energy. Anytime I eat, I'm like, oh, this protein's going to give me a nice little boost. Whereas, like I just got back from a couple of days of in Texas visiting my best friend, where I had brisket and mac and cheese, and I wanted to take a nap after every meal. And that's not supposed to happen. You should be eating food and you should be energized and feeling good. So my main focus is eating at least like 30 grams of protein with every meal. I'm getting in my fruits and veggies, and I'm eating a healthy carbohydrate, and trying to eat as many whole foods as possible, meaning staying out of the middle aisles where there's a lot of processed and bagged foods and high saturated fats and all these crazy seasonings and food colorings and stuff like that. I really try to eat whole foods. So I shop the perimeter of the grocery store, and I just try to eat, a well-balanced diet.
I never looked at it that way. I didn't realize that all the whole foods were on the outside. Did you realize that? Yeah. So shop the perimeter of the supermarket, people.
I had to drop a little tip for you. It's tips and tips.
Tips and tips. Thank you for that tip. We're going to definitely highlight that tip.
Try to spend 80% of your time shopping the perimeter and see how your health changes.
Wow.
But you know what, too? Like, if you look at the cultural context of food, right? Notice how Elise said protein and carbs. She didn't say you need to eat fish and chicken. Like, it doesn't specify, because protein looks so much different in all different cultures. Like, I follow this girl on TikTok, and she makes Caribbean food for her workouts, like plantain, rice and peas, chicken, jerk chicken, but it meets her nutritional requirements to maintain that muscle. So I think it's really cool that you said that, Elise.
Thank you.
You ate that.
And I think, too, it's moderation, right? Because someone dropped some knowledge on me a few years back, and he mentioned that when you go into a Jamaican household, right, they feed you like a slave. So I was with my friend, and that's what I did. I was like, huh? They feed you like a slave. Look at the Jamaican plate, typical Jamaican plate. The whole thing full of rice. Then you have a piece of meat. And then you have gravy. And then they give you a salad. It's a slice of tomato and a piece of lettuce. And it's true. That's how I grew up eating. A whole plate of rice and peas, a little chicken leg, and a slice of tomato and lettuce. That's why when I came to this country and they offered me spinach and Brussels sprouts and asparagus, I'm like, hell no, I'm not going to eat that. That's gross, right? So, yeah, it is a cultural difference. And I think people need to kind of just check themselves and check their plates and see what they're eating. You can eat what you normally eat culturally, but look at the portions of each thing that you're consuming. I think that will make a big difference in your physical and also mental health. Does diet affect your mental health?
Absolutely. If you find yourself eating more sugary or processed foods, you're more apt to depression and anxiety. And that's what studies show. It's not me. It's not personal. I'm sorry. But yeah, that can definitely affect your mental health 100%. It can make you more apt to, these mental health conditions and concerns, but also it can decline your cognitive abilities, especially over time, right? So that's why it's important to kind of incorporate a more balanced diet, because if not, then it can definitely have a big effect on, your body short term and long term.
All right. Wow. Thank you for that. All right. So we're going to wrap up now. But before we go, I want to give you guys two different scenarios and just have you kind of comment on what these folks could do. All right. I have a friend, works night shift. She's a nurse, right? Doesn't have that much time to work out. But her and I, we love to dine out. We love to eat. What advice can you give her to improve her physical and mental health, her relationship with food and her physical health?
Wow. I'll start with the physical health aspect of things. When you work in a setting that you're probably inside most of the day, or you're in an office space, or I mean, a hospital is a great place because there's plenty of steps. So what I would recommend for her is, if she's able to, instead of taking the elevator everywhere, take the steps. Take 5 or 10 minutes in between whenever you can get a break, and go outside and get some sun. Oh wait, you said that she works night. Okay, so don't go outside and get the sun because there's no sun. I would definitely say take the steps. Make sure she's packing healthy snacks so that you're not going to the cafeteria and getting, chips and whatever else. Make sure you're packing nice, healthy snacks. And one of the other things she can do is try to find like a community of friends that kind of pushes her and is able to help get her to the gym, or doing something. Doesn't have to be the gym. It could just be a fun activity that she can do with a friend or somebody close by her. Those would be my big ones. Just try to take little baby steps, even when it doesn't seem that way, but they're little steps that build.
That's awesome, Elise.
And mental health, relationship with food.
I'm interested in knowing a little more about that, because I'd have to ask more detailed questions in order to understand kind of like this relationship with food. Because in your initial presentation, I just heard that she works night shift.
And we love eating. We love dining out. We love, we just love food.
Okay. So what is the particular relationship with food? Like what's the presenting issue with that?
Being able to say no to food.
Oh, okay. So when I think of that, I think of habitual things, but I also think of like information processing and how we kind of form habits, right? I mean, I would like to know more, but due to time constraints, what I would say is, first, reflection is key. Reflection is always key in anything that we do. And that's what I usually start clients off with, because when you have the power to reflect on what you're doing, you have that emotional awareness to then make change. So what I would say to my potential auntie or family friend, whoever this is sit down and really reflect on, one, what it is you're doing, how it's affecting you, and how it could affect you long term, meaning putting that next to, is that the person you want to be in the future? Does that make sense? Yeah.
All right. One more scenario, and this one is quite popular because men, women, we all do this. I have a friend, and each year there's an annual event. And this friend says every time, I'm going to lose weight for this event. I'm going to look so different for that event. And goes all out, and he tries to lose weight for these events, right? It's not me, Kara.
I didn't think it was you. It's giving projection, but
It used to be me, but I don't do that anymore. So what do you want to tell that friend as far as your physical health? Is that something you should just focus on once a year for an event?
No, that you really want to be able to create habits that you can commit to long term.
Exactly. Thank you, Elise.
Yeah. So yes, of course, having a goal in mind is a great thing. A lot of times it's a wedding. Somebody wants to look a certain way for a wedding or a big life event. And while that's good, you don't want to only create lifestyle changes for a short period of time. You want to incorporate lifestyle changes that you can do every single day, really for the rest of your life, besides maybe going out for dinner and having treats every once in a while. So it's really like, what little steps can you take on a daily basis that you can commit to and stick to, and trying not to focus on such short-term quick little pops of weight loss or whatever it may look like. You want to think sustainability for the long term.
Yeah. And on the mental side of things, in that process of getting to whatever goal they have in mind, I think too, what's going to be important is not necessarily operating off of a sense of body negativity, or not being so overly zealous where, you are expecting yourself to be body positive and saying, oh, like, it's fine, like, I'm okay. But more so body neutrality, meaning my body is the way that it is. It's taking me through everything like I need to do. And I am going to be okay and successful with the things that I am doing. This is the body that I have, right? Being in a more neutral mindset where you don't really have to push yourself to believe something you don't believe, but at the same time, you don't have to keep bombarding yourself with these negative thoughts.
Oh, that was a great answer. All right, that was definitely a great answer from you both. So I want to wrap this up with one final thing. I want you to look into the camera and I want you to give them one important tip. If you could share anything with anyone who's tuned in about physical health, about mental health, what is that one important tip that you want folks to take away from this talk today? And then finish by telling folks how they could follow you on social media.
Okay. Finding. Oh crap!
Look in
Why
this
are
camera
there so
here.
many cameras?
I want you to look in that camera there, Elise, and tell folks that one tip and how they could follow.
Okay. Now that I'm looking into the right camera, quick tip: find time to work out 3 to 4 times a week, 30 minutes, and it's going to support your long-term physical health, cognitive health, mental health. It's simple, short and simple.
And how can we find you online? Because I want to follow your journey.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram if you look Elise Caldwell. Just type me in the search box. You can also find me on the DBC Fitness website at dbcfitness.com. Feel free to check out the facility where I work and also a little bit more about myself and my coworkers as well.
And I have to give a plug for DBC. I have to give a plug for Elise because I recently had to have a new joint. Because I have no cartilage in my knees. And Elise got me an extension on that warranty on my knee. I was able to go 2 years more after seeing Elise. You gave me 2 additional years
Wow. I didn't
on that pain because I suffer from chronic pain. And I was able to extend it for 2 years after I started working out with you. And that's the strongest I ever felt. I was an athlete in high school. And even working out and going to the gym and training, I never felt as strong as I did when I went to see you at DBC. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Kind of following up on that too. I've known Elise since high school, and Elise has always been like a positive force. She's not just like your day-to-day like trainer. No, she has the knowledge to go past that. She's always studying and bettering herself. Not only that, but she helps you feel like a more holistic person or performer. So Elise, you are like the family, like everything.
Mhm.
So thank you, Elise. Mhm.
Yeah. And the only trainer to make me cry. But anyway, yeah, happy tears, right? Physically strong tears. Kara, what's that one tip you want to give in this camera?
That camera not looking at me.
That camera is looking at you.
It's this camera
Okay.
again, girl. You thought you knew something, you didn't. Anyway.
Cut that part, Gerald.
Don't cut it, Gerald. My tip, I think mine is going to be short and sweet, just like Elise. While I understand the cultural implications and or understandings of therapy in different cultures, go to therapy. It is 100% confidential. Nobody has to know. And you can work through all of the things that you want to work through. It may feel uncomfortable, but I promise you that comfort that you're going to receive after you do the work is going to be one of the most fulfilling feelings you'll ever feel. So go to therapy. Consult with your friends, but go to therapy.
All right. And I have to thank you for that because, guys, I actually sat in one therapy session with Kara. And as
girl, that was your therapy session. That wasn't mine.
As soon as I sat down and the therapist said, "Hi, my name is," I was like, I just started bawling, and I just started bearing all. It's like, okay, so yeah, I think we could all benefit from at least 1 or 2 sessions. Just check it out. And I get it, Kara. My friends cannot be my therapist. I'm sorry, Candy and Cheryl. I will do better. I will do better to manage my mental health. All right. And that said, I want to thank you so much for tuning in for this, our first episode of Mommy Sips and Tips. Hopefully you'll join us for the second, the third, and everything thereafter. And please be sure to follow us on Instagram, mommies_sips tips. Thank you so much. Karen out.